So today we have an exciting, riveting topic of insurance.
No,
We promised we would do one on insurance. We want to talk more about our passage.
it's ruining my day. We're in Corsica in beautiful Anchorage with only 4 or 5 boats, and we have to
I
talk
know.
about insurance.
I know. Yeah, so describe this scene a little bit where we're sitting.
Well, first time in Corsica for both of us, and I don't know.
It's
right now,
beautiful.
like it's definitely very touristy in the summer. We are like 1st of September today.
Yeah, I
Maybe.
think so. Yeah.
So definitely most people went back to work and the kids will start school soon. So I don't know if that's the reason, but we have like 4 or 5 boats in this Anchorage. It's beautiful.
And it's the mountains are kind of tall and craggy.
And the rock is
and
like
the
red rock.
is red rock. So it reminds me kind of a little bit, the bay we're in, it's not tropical, but Kauai a little bit in terms of the mountains, like I guess the landscape. The trees and stuff are different, obviously, but there's a little beach, a little dark pebble beach, and this beautiful bay. So it's just stunning, and the water's flat and sparkling. And we woke up this morning after a beautiful night's sleep. No, wasn't rolly or anything, and we were quickly reminded why we do this and why it's worth the insurance.
The weight and the cost of,
Yeah.
and the headaches and cost of insurance. And
Yeah. So insurance is what we're going to talk about.
All together.
Hello, and welcome to Covert Castaway. I'm Holly.
Je suis Stéphane.
Join us as we share what we learn and how we're making the transition to liveaboard cruising. Okay, so let's just do a quick update on how we got to Corsica, maybe first, and we'll talk about fun stuff, and then we'll get to the insurance here in the back end. But yeah, so that was kind of a quick exit, stage right out of Le Grand Mont. That was unexpected a little bit.
Well, we knew at some point we needed to take off, and we
Yeah.
have to bring the boat back 1st of October in Le Grand Mont. So we were like, okay, now we have like the month of September, so we need to do a proper shakedown and basically get a hand of this boat and discover, little issues. So we had been testing, doing sailing around La Grande Motte, and then being at the dock, there was some bad weather also for 2 days, which was great to get a couple of things fixed. The primary one was a water maker. The issue has been resolved.
Don't say it. Don't say it. Just
And the electronic card has been changed, and so far so good. So basically, as soon as the weather was good enough to leave the marina, we it was end of afternoon.
we had some other issues too, like our refrigerator was having an identity crisis,
Yeah.
thinking it was a freezer.
Yeah.
And then the freezer got competitive and wanted to be a refrigerator.
Yeah.
And so that sort of got sorted out in terms of the freezer now is a freezer again. But the refrigerator, we just have to turn off and on. So there's little bits and pieces we have to sort out. But
So we went out end of afternoon, and we were like, okay, let's see if the water
this was
maker
on
works.
Friday, right?
I
Yeah.
lose track of the days.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably. No,
Yeah.
no, it's Thursday.
Thursday.
Thursday end of the day. So the water maker seems to work. We tested with the engine, without the engines, at anchor. We anchor outside like on mud, and then we're like, okay, if the water maker works, we can take off.
We can go. Yeah.
And even with our fridge acting as a freezer, we can turn it on and off for the
Right.
time being. And then, so suddenly, like, kind of unannounced.
Well, Stefan, you started to it was like 9:00 at night. You're doing route planning suddenly for Corsica, and I'm like, wait a minute, what are we doing?
Well, now we're looking.
And then I'm tired and everything else, and
Yeah, we don't know. Like, do we go east? Do we go west? Do we go south? And we're like, okay, what's the weather telling us? And then because we have this application software Octopus, so I'm playing with it, download the weather, look at stuff, learning about the products. And then we're like, oh, okay. So if we were to leave at midnight, that would be a perfect weather window to Corsica. We'll be there like in no time. It's about 210 nautical miles. And then we're like, well, we're not in state to leave at midnight. We need a good night's sleep. So we're like, okay, wake up at 6:30. And we're like, okay, if we leave at 8, the weather will be good, like 2/3 or more, 3/4, and it'll be light. But that's still a weather window. And after that, they were like a day without wind, and then it was reversing coming from the east.
Yeah, so we had a finite amount of time.
Yeah, so we had the decision to make. And if we wanted to go to Cannes, then it was kind of the window to take. So we're like, okay, took off. And Tamara's like, we had thermostat on Friday morning. It was like, ciao, we'll have to find a plan B for the thermostat.
We split. So they're like, where did those guys go? I'm sure because they were troubleshooting the fridge situation. So so we left. We're actually putting together a video for our YouTube channel on the passage, so we won't go into too much detail. But it was fun. I mean, we scooted along. This boat likes to gallop, and that's what she did. And other than discovering we weren't emitting AIS, which took 10 years off my life. Once we figured that out,
you wanted to call every boat that was 10 miles away.
10 miles away. But anyway, it's stressful. That was stressful. So
at least we could see them. That was good.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk about insurance. Oh my God, what a bummer.
Don't we want to talk more about the passage a little bit?
Let's just dive right in because we've gotten a lot of notes on this topic. So what we decided to, rather than talk about specific companies, is just to give some high-level guidance and like lessons learned, because I think that's probably more helpful because everybody's situation is going to be a little bit different.
And the insurance situation is going to evolve also.
Yeah. So biggest takeaways are bank on it being harder than you thought to get insurance, and bank on it being a lot more expensive than you thought it was going to be, especially if you are an American or fly a U.S. flag. So those, I think, are the biggest key takeaways, but we can talk a little bit more about our process. So you started back in January.
Yeah.
Contacting.
You do the easy stuff. You go online and they have a form and you're like, oh, okay, I'll fill up all the information about the boat, about our experience, about this and that.
Or you talk to brokers.
Yeah, mostly everything online. And then they give you back information and pricing and you're like, oh, easy shopping, insurance shopping. So now you're like, oh, let's dive into the detail. Who covers this? Who covers that? What deductible, this and that. And you don't worry about it. You have like the information and you think like at the time, when time comes, you can review this and select one.
And you're trying to compare a little bit.
Yeah.
How is this one
which
better?
Looking back was, a kind of waste
of time.
The approach is more get like 2 or 3 that you're committed to you're
semi-comfortable with.
To sign with, and then have your preferred one, but then have a backup plan. That's the gist of it, because we got surprises after surprises and stuff like, so we went to our previous insurance, for example, and we're not US flag boat, we're a French flag boat, because US is complicated.
Well, US citizens on a foreign flag boat, unless it's a company, is difficult. A company outside the U.S., right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like for the BVI flag boat that we had before, that was a bit easier.
Yeah.
And it was under a business.
It's mostly the flag, the boat, yeah. So if you cruise, if you're American, if you cruise in the U.S. waters, that's going to be okay. But as soon as you want to leave U.S. waters, the U.S. companies are not too much into the business of insuring. I mean, you can find some, but I will tell you more anecdotal stuff about this, because we tried to reach to a big insurance company in the US as we were kind of not having a solution. But and then foreign insurance companies looking at US flag boat don't like it because the American are too litigious, kind of. That's kind of the word. So anyway, we had surprises after surprises, even with our previous insurance. And within that same insurance, they have different offices in different countries that have different rules. And even with that insurance in that one country, depending if you're a French flag or if you're like a non-French flag, even the rules are different.
Yeah.
We were like so confused, like you're assuming certain things and suddenly it's like, what are you talking about?
Like for instance, we were talking to one company of an insurance company, one office of an insurance company out of Monaco. And then we were transferred, because it was a French flag now, to the French office. And that was a completely different type of conversation. And then we considered talking to another one in Germany because their rules were different.
Within the same
company.
This is the headquarters for the company. So, but that was like so confusing. So when you look at the Caribbeans, the same insurance company, if you were with the non-French team in the insurance office, there are certain rules about the latitudes and which islands you can winter in. And with the French one, it was like totally different. And we're like, whoa.
And some of them didn't make any sense. Like you would actually be safer doing something different than what they're recommending. So
I think that's another takeaway is the insurance companies, I think they're getting more and more cold feet, especially with climate change. And when there is an event that happens, they react. So I think with Irma, there was a good reason to react because they had so many charter boats that got damaged. But even in Corsica, in the Med, 2 years ago, there was like a very local event, and there was definitely some boat being lost and damaged. But now, so because of that event and because the industry to fix boat is probably small and expensive here. So like with the insurance we have today, like we're in Corsica, if we were to fix our boat here, our deductible is 3 times the cost. This is
if something was going to happen, our deductible is 3 times as much, 12 nautical miles away from Corsica and 12 miles out. That's the kind of thing in the T's and C's because they're reacting to the storm they had a couple of years ago.
Yeah, so they react to an event. They change the rules to make them pretty drastic, and then they never take them out.
Yeah.
So it's and now we heard some rumors, but because there was this event in Corsica 2 years ago, there was also the Medicane. We were nearby.
Right. That was in Corfu, right?
No. That was in between Greece and the boot in Italy, that big part of water. So there was a mini hurricane, not so many, but for the Medicane. And so that created a lot of damage too. So now you have those local events that are happening. And so insurance companies are looking at the Med as potentially like being
the Med used to be cheap. So another kind of takeaway is the Med is supposed to be level 1 expensive. And then the Caribbean is level 2 expensive. Mm-hmm. And then French Polynesia is level 3 expensive. And then Indian Ocean is level 4 expensive. So that's how it works. So with the Med, those price ranges are probably going to change. We heard that from multiple brokers we talked to, I think, or companies. So that was that. So I guess,
Well, and it's a general estimate. But if you go from the Med, and if you move from the Med to the Caribbean, count double the price.
Yeah.
As a rule of thumb. And if you go in French Polynesia, it counts like 3 times the cost of your insurance. So that's something to definitely
3 times the Med. So 3 times what you started out with. Yeah.
So of course you can shop around, find local insurance companies, and we're just giving high-level guidelines.
Yeah.
With insurance companies that are based in France and Europe. That's what we're talking about. Now, if you shop around in the Caribbean, you might be able to find better prices, but be ready to every year potentially shop and change insurance, because what we found out too, I was talking about the communication we had with an insurance broker in the US, and what we found out, the first thing he took our phone call and he said, well, I cannot insure your boat. And we're like, oh, you're kind of joking, Well,
because we got the referral from someone who had a Nutrimare.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, talk to my broker. I'm insured.
Yeah.
And this was a pretty new boat. It wasn't like, it was like 1 year old.
So it was recent. And I guess this person has had this insurance prior, so maybe that made a difference. But the bottom line, what he was saying is talking about insurances overreacting, and somebody in the office somewhere not knowing about anything about boats. But basically, they're looking at Outre-mer, which are like performance, but cruising catamarans, not racing boats. But they created a category.
They classify it as a racing boat.
Pretty much, sport racing boat. And so the insurances don't want to take on too many of those boats because they want to spread the risk. So the bottom line, he was like, I'd love to insure you because it's good money. It's an expensive boat. But he said I had to turn down like about 10 Outre-mer because, this insurance company now is classified in this type of boat. So be aware of that. And then if you have that insurance, or if you have any insurance, be aware that any year they might get out of the market.
Yeah.
They might change some stuff. So always kind of have a backup plan. And I will say that's also a takeaway for if you're buying a brand new boat, for example, buying a boat. That's what we're saying. Like just have like 2 or 3 insurances in your pocket that you're willing to.
Insurance is definitely not a set it and forget it kind of thing. I think that was there's definitely insurance companies that will cover. There's a handful of insurance companies that'll cover you under a global coverage, a policy, a general terms and conditions. And I'm just using round numbers just to ballpark. So, say a boat like ours or similar to ours would be 30,000 euros a year or something
for
like that.
global.
For a global insurance coverage. So that's a set it and forget it.
And that will make sense if you want to go around the world in 1 year.
In 1 year, right.
If you're cruising over 3 years,
that makes no sense, right. So the other option is you continuously every year review your insurance options, which, so you can get the best price, the best coverage and all of that. So administratively, it's definitely something that you have to deal with, unless you just want to pay the 30,000 euros a year and be done with it. But
and the other thing that's interesting is some insurances, because of lightning, can make a lot of damage to your electronic, or potentially if you have a carbon mast and something. But so the insurance we have now, like, they don't have any clause for lightning. So it's just an event that happens, and you pay.
I think the deductible's more or something.
No. It's just an event, and so
like any other event.
Yeah, the previous insurance we had, they were going to double, triple. I forgot.
It was a double. It was
triple, I think.
It was something. It was some multiplier, unless you had like some anti-device whatever, and I think we shared that in an earlier podcast. We messed up and we ordered one that's meant
but
for like,
even if we put a device installed by a professional, I'm sure the day you get hit by lightning, there's an expert
really
that comes on your boat and
Yeah.
they'll say, sorry, good try, but that's not good enough. So at least it made us feel good, but so.
And this is a really good point. In some of the terms and conditions, there were a couple companies that I was like, okay, this is really straightforward. You could look at the policy, which is like 50 pages long, but you basically look at it and you're like, okay, I know what I'm covered for. I know what it's going to cost. It's really clear. And I had a preference for insurance companies. So let's just call that company A. Company B and C, like, you start reading the terms and conditions and it's like trying to follow some strange logic tree. Like, if this, then that, unless this other thing happens, view Appendix C to see if it, like, you couldn't really figure out if you were actually covered or not. And then at the end of the day, part of the T's and C's were like, you have to absolutely maintain all of these things. So like if something happens on your boat, but you have an expired fire extinguisher or whatever, and say the thing had nothing to do with fire, like, they could actually deny the claim. Like, some of them got really picky. So call that, company B or C or whatever. And so I had a preference for policies, but at the end of the day, we didn't have a choice.
No.
Like, we had to get the insurance that whatever was given to us. So I think that's another thing to be aware of is you don't necessarily have leverage because you have multiple quotes. Like, it for us, it came down to what we could get, not what we wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And
we were happy that we could
get. We were happy because it came under the wire. It was like we had handover on a Thursday or something, and it like came in on Wednesday night or something.
Oh no, we signed the papers on Monday. Something like
it was
like
close. Really close.
And we were after all the surprises we went through, we're like, something else is going to fall through at the last minute.
We were like, until we get the certificate of coverage, like, we were concerned about it.
So
the broker was really nice, though. Like, we can sit here and kind of go, oh, I wish this or wish that in the policy. But the broker seemed really responsive, and that was good. So I'm happy about that. And it's a good company in this area, and they're known in this area. So I feel good about that, too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So any other major takeaways?
No, we tried to talk to also some, because we were running out of options, and we with our previous insurance company, they were nice to give us some names and even called some insurance, and they were explaining our situation, and they're like, oh yeah, call this insurance. And so you're like, oh, this insurance was also in Ireland, and we're like, oh, okay, good. And then they came back, and I forgot the reason, but they basically said we cannot insure you for X, Y, and Z reason. I don't remember. So it was definitely we were thinking outside like France, talking to other insurances, and then it didn't help.
Yeah. I mean, I think the thing you have to keep in mind, and everybody knows this, but I'll state it because this has absolutely been the case with my experience with our health insurance. Cigna Global, do not ever buy that purchase or policy, by the way. It's awful. They're not actually there to protect you or help you. Like, the insurance, in my experience, especially with health and with the boat, they're there to cover themselves. And there's insurance companies, they spread the risk around. There's major, insurance companies that underwrite a lot of these policies. But yeah, you are not the consumer. You are not the customer. So that's the thing I think also to remember.
Yeah. And what I would say is like definitely get as much also sailing, cruising experience as possible.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Even like certification. Don't assume that's going to help you negotiate anything. That was not even like, I mean, we tried asking with our previous insurance 2 years ago. It's like you quickly realize like, there is no negotiation of anything.
Well, no, I think what it comes down to is like if we can do the Atlantic crossing by ourselves without a skipper right now, like because of our experience.
Yeah. And
but it's still an extra policy on top of the policy.
Yeah.
Like we have to pay extra for that passage to get covered for that passage, but we're able to get covered.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. You don't get a break on the price. It's more you get coverage for that leg of the trip.
And I think we've heard like if you have less experience, then some insurance companies will require that you have a third person, a skipper, and something. So definitely, regardless of the insurance, like it's good for many reasons. But build your sailing resume. That would be good. Not to negotiate, but to at least not lose opportunities or stuff like this, or not add cost potentially. And that's the other thing you can do besides shopping early and shopping often and have backup plans.
Yeah, for sure. So that's our kind of insurance tips and advice. So what are we doing next here? We're going to hang out in Corsica for a few days?
Yeah, we have a little to-do list. So we're going to be working on that, settling down a little bit. And then we're going to monitor the weather. We'll cross back to the mainland
France, yeah.
Yeah, in south of France. So
and we're headed to Cannes, the Cannes boat show, because we have people we want to meet there, and we also have some loose ends we need to tie up with some other equipment and stuff, and people that are helping us with some of the fixes on the boat.
Yeah.
And we hope to meet up with our friends, the O'Kellys. They're in the area, and
they're in Nice, yeah.
Yeah, it'd be great to see them here in France after we saw them in Australia.
Halfway around the world.
I know.
Yeah.
I love the boating community. So that'll be fun. So if anybody's going to the Cannes Boat Show, please reach out to us and at sailingowen@gmail.com. Do you have any other thoughts on our plans next? Just cruising along the southern...
Cruise along, plan, monitor the weather.
Yeah, we're very quickly losing track of time, which is why this podcast is a day late. So reach out to us if you have any questions or other topics you want us to cover, sailingowen.com. And like I said, we have a YouTube channel. We've posted a couple videos at Sailing Owen, and the next one is going to be about our passage to Corsica.
Some sailing videos, finally.
Fair winds for now.
Bon vent.